Hey everybody, my name is Paul Eworth, and this is my presentation on analyzing assessment data and specifically designed instruction. The skill I chose to focus on was kicking a ball or a soccer ball, and the disability I chose to focus on was cerebral palsy. I didn't have too much of a reason why I chose CP. I did go to high school and middle school with a friend that had CP, and it was interesting to see him, in physical education and see the challenges he faced. So I guess maybe that's why I chose it. But I did find some interesting things, some different assessment ideas, and I hope it's helpful and beneficial to you guys. Let's get started. Most of us know what CP is or the effects of it on an individual, but it's a neurological disorder caused by a brain injury or a malformation while the brain is under development, and it primarily affects muscular coordination and body movement. And CP can be defined, but it does not define the person. Like I said, I went to school with a friend who had CP, and it's not a intellectual disability. It's a disability that really affects the muscular coordination and body movement. It can be intellectual, but most cases it's more so of a muscular coordination and body movement disability. So that's in physical education. That's kind of where they struggle because their motor functions aren't necessarily developed, or it's tougher for them to develop. CP is commonly described as loss of impairment or motor function due to brain damage. The brain damage is caused by an injury to the brain or abnormal development of the brain while it is still developing. This damage or abnormal development happens before, during, or right after birth. So the CP is not something you develop, at a middle school age or elementary age. It happens, you're born with it, or it happens soon right after birth because of that brain damage. Here's just a little picture of some things what I just said. Some are other stats or interesting statistics about CP or interesting facts. Some of the symptoms here that I kind of touched on before, just lack of motor skills and muscle coordination, stiff muscles and spasms, bad posture and instability, difficulty walking. In more severe cases, people with CP will be in wheelchairs, either all the time or part of the time. A lot of the times you'll see them with crutches, and or there's other cases where they don't necessarily need crutches. And then there are some symptoms of epilepsy. That's not as common, but it is a symptom of CP. Cerebral palsy caused by medical malpractice. This is something I didn't really know much about, that there are a good amount of cases of CP that are caused by medical malpractice, and you can read the list right there. Infection during pregnancy, entrapment in the birth canal. You can just read those right there. And then some interesting statistics that 40% do have a cognitive disability, 35% have epilepsy, 15% have vision impairment, 60% of children with CP have another developmental disability. 41% of children with CP are limited in their ability to crawl, walk, run, or play. 31% of the children with CP need special equipment to move, and the estimated lifetime cost of caring for a person with CP is almost $1 million, which really puts a lot into perspective how much a family has to sacrifice for their child or relative that has CP for them to have a comfortable life. There are different types of cerebral palsy, depending on which part of the brain is affected. You can see right down here the different areas where the brain is affected causes different symptoms of cerebral palsy. So stiff muscles with damage to or developmental differences in the cerebral cortex, that part of the brain will cause, like I said, stiff muscles. The uncontrollable movements you can see are caused in the basal, sorry for my pronunciation, ganglia part of the brain. And then poor balance and coordination is the cerebellum. And then a mixed combination of two or more types associated with damage to multiple areas of the brain. So that you can have a mix of a bunch of different symptoms. The types of cerebral palsy again affect different as different parts of the brain are affected, then different body parts can be affected. As you can see that sometimes it just affects one limb, sometimes it affects one side of the body, sometimes it affects either arms or legs. Sometimes a person with CP, their legs can work pretty well, and then their arms are not able to work as well. And then there's other cases where it affects all four limbs. The kid I went to school with, it definitely affected all four limbs, but he was able, I guess through a bunch of therapy, and I know he had a few surgeries and that kind of thing, was able to walk without crutches or a wheelchair. I mean, he struggled, but at the same time, there was a lot that he worked on so he could be able to walk without assistance for the most part. But he was had every limb affected. He was the quad type of person with cerebral palsy. Individuals with cerebral palsy, each case of CP affects individuals differently. Like in most cases, most disabilities, they're not, one disability is not going to affect the person the exact same way. Like I said before, there's different levels of severity of CP. Sometimes a person with CP, again, has to be in a wheelchair. Sometimes they're able to walk on their own. Some individuals are not able to communicate while others are able to communicate. There's a bunch of videos that I was looking at on YouTube that had kids with CP being able to communicate for the first time at, I don't know, teenage years, which was amazing to see, but also super sad that they weren't able to communicate for that long. So kicking a ball in physical education. This video is about a 6-minute video or something like that of it's a group of kids in college that teach how to properly kick a ball in physical education class. And this is something that I would teach to a gen ed physical education group. This is kind of why I'm showing it, just to give you guys a sense of how I would teach it. Not necessarily the same. If it's depending on age, I wouldn't put as many steps in maybe as they did, but this is just a general education phys ed lesson on how to
For our video assignment, we will be teaching preps the fundamental movement skill of kicking a soccer ball. We'll show step-by-step techniques and demonstrate examples in a teacher class scenario. We'll provide feedback to the learner and highlight some common errors often made by beginners.
It is stated that all students should be given the chance to develop and practice these essential motor skills in the early years. In prep, the student should be introduced to the concept of kicking a ball. By grade 3, they should be able to master this concept. It is important to modify for the range of age groups by using different types of equipment and cater for different.
The kick is a striking skill characterized by creating force from the foot and projecting it to an object. The stationary kick is the focus of the skill and involves kicking an object which is still. It is also important for foot-eye coordination. The stationary place kick has been chosen as the most widely used kick by primary school children. It is the easiest in which to develop proficiency and is more closely related to lead-up activities and modified games than other kicks. Today we'll be focusing on the soccer kick. Soccer kick is very useful, helps with hand-eye coordination, foot-eye coordination, everything. Could everyone please partner up, get a ball between two, and practice some kicking skills?
I don't have a partner.
Okay, we can go together, Jess.
Okay.
That's nice. Good job. foot kick? Number one. Does anyone know? Number one. No? Okay. That's okay. We're all learning here. Eyes always on the ball. If your eyes aren't on the ball, you're going to fall on your bottom. Step two. Your opposite foot. So for example, I'm a right-legged kick. Your opposite foot, which is your left foot, stands next to the ball. Just like that. You want to do that for me, Jess? Show the class.
And eyes are on the ball.
Good job. And what's your opposite foot doing?
Next.
Just like that. Good job. Maybe kick it to me. See how you go. That's alright. Good job. Step three. Bend your knee. You can't kick a ball straight-legged. That's going to hurt. That hurt me. So, when bending your knee, we want to create a right angle. Can everyone show me what a right angle is? Good job. So, eyes on the ball, opposite foot standing next to it. Bending your leg in a right angle, and next step. Hip extension, knee extension, that's what we want to do. So your legs at 90 degrees, kick the ball with your hip, your knee, and that's taking us to the next step. So when making contact with the ball, I can see a lot of you are kicking the ball with your toes of your feet, just like this. Can anyone tell me why you don't want to kick with the toes of your feet? No one? Oh, that's okay. Everyone's learning here. So, kicking with the end of your feet. You don't really have the accuracy that you want to get to from point A to point B. For example, if I kick, it could come off the side and go complete other way. As well as, it's actually very injury prone. Elite football players kick it like this sometimes, they can have broken toes. So we don't want that in our pastime. We want to make contact with the inside of your foot. Helps with the accuracy and much stronger kicking skills. Just like this. Goal! When kicking a ball, you can't have your arms by your side like this. Same as running. Move your arms and legs at the same time. Same with kicking a football. Moving your arms in a motion. When kicking a soccer ball, your opposite arm swings through. Just like this, when kicking a ball. Helps with the balance. For example, if you wanted to kick a ball and your arms both went backwards, that puts you off balance and you could fall over, okay? After we learn the arm movement, we want to follow through in the kick. So can I just have the ball, Jeff? Follow through in a kick. You don't want to kick a ball like this. You're not going to be able to get the force behind it, which you want to go further and stronger. So are you ready? I'm just going to keep holding you. So kick, eyes on the ball, opposite foot next to it, knee at right angle, hip and knee flexion, arm movement, and follow through. Okay? Follow through. Now keep those for 7 seconds and make a good kick. There are a few common mistakes children do when they are attempting to learn this skill. It is important to highlight that kicking a soccer ball is not about how far you can kick it, it's more about the technique. Looking at the target area rather than looking at the ball is key, as well as the inability to maintain balance on one leg whilst kicking a ball. For example, prep students have not mastered the balance part of it yet. Ball contact is also made with your inside of your foot instead of kicking with your toe, as this could cause injury and lack of accuracy.
When reflecting on Mitch's lesson on the fundamental movement skill of kicking a soccer ball, we can see he tailored his teaching to suit the developmental level of preps. He also used appropriate equipment, understanding that for some students it may be the first time attempting this skill. He positioned himself so that the whole class could see and hear him clearly and focused on his key teaching points, which were the 7 steps.
All right, so like I said, this is just a normal physical education class. So I would teach kicking a ball somewhat similar to that. Again, I wouldn't focus on the 7 steps. I feel like that's a little bit much, especially for younger kids. but it is just a general idea of how to teach a gen ed class on how to teach how to kick a soccer ball. In my class that I teach, I do a partner assessment sheet for my testing, for my assessment for a grade. This goes into part of their grade. And what this sheet is basically each student will get a sheet, and you'll write down your name of the skill performer who's ever performing the skill. In this case, it's kicking a soccer ball, and the name of the skill observer, whoever their partner is who is observing them, and then they'll work together. And one partner will observe and evaluate how their partner is kicking the ball, and they'll give them a point value and place it on the line that represents each skill. So as you can see, the point value system is 0 through 4, 4 being always doing something, 0 being never doing part of that skill. And this is for, again, a general physical education class. This one's not modified. I'll show you a modified one that I would use. But just going through the skills of kicking a ball is the student plants opposite foot next to the ball before kicking. The student points his toe with his plant foot in the direction of the target. The student strikes the ball with the inside and outside of the foot, never the toe, and the student uses both left and right foot and accurately hits his target. So, again, that lesson that you guys just watched covered some of these points. But when I'm teaching a 4th or 5th grader, I'm not going to have them remember 7 steps. But it covers the basic skill of kicking a ball. So what I would do is I would have one student, kicking the ball against the wall and retrieving it, and have them do this maybe for 5 minutes, and the other partner observing, writes down, is Johnny planting his opposite foot next to the ball before kicking every time, or is he only doing that most of the time, or only doing it some of the time, or something like that. And this way it gives them a little bit of freedom to, kind of grade themselves, which is, they really like that, not power, they like that responsibility. I've had good success, even with, 4th and 5th graders. They're almost a little bit too young to do it, but middle schoolers, they really enjoy doing this, so they get to take part in their own grade. And then, of course, I will go and look at these to make sure that someone's not giving zeros all around, or somebody's not getting a 4 all around where they shouldn't. And so that's why I have them put their name on the observer name too. When it comes to individuals with disabilities, as we've learned in this class and through other classes in this program, that having visual aids for not only kids with disabilities but also all students is just really helpful. So this is just a visual that I have found and have used in the classroom. Just recently found this for another project in a different class, and started using this. So there are 8 steps here, which again I said before is a little bit much, but if there's visuals, then they can have, it's probably easier to go through. But again, their skills testing or assessment for each other will not include all 8 of these. It will just include 4. And I feel like those 4 are the important ones in kicking a ball. But again, this is something that should be up and visible for your students, especially those with disabilities, not just CP, but all disabilities. It's very beneficial for them to have that picture and be able to see how it is. This is a student that is going to be kicking a ball with cerebral palsy. It was tough to find videos that had any a PE class of just a kid with cerebral palsy kicking a soccer ball. And I don't currently teach any students with CP right now, so I couldn't get that video, but this is just a real short video of a student kicking a ball who has cerebral palsy.
Wait for the ref, Joe. Good job.
Go!
Oh.
Ay, ay, ay!
Yeah! Woo-hoo!
All right, so again, this video is of a student or a kid that is, it looks like he's playing on a team, or he's maybe that just there taking some of the free kicks. But again, he is kicking a ball, and he does have cerebral palsy. And as you can see, it doesn't look, or it looks more difficult for him than it would with a person without CP. And if I was to evaluate or assess this student, given the skill sheet that I just went over with you guys, he would probably get zeros and ones throughout the entire sheet, because he's just not capable of maybe he's not capable of turning his foot to use the inside. Maybe he's not capable of planting that one foot and pointing his toe in the direction of the target, because he can't control that, and because he's on a walk or something like that. So obviously that assessment sheet is not going to be used for individuals with disability, especially CP, which is why I came up with why I would come up with a modified assessment sheet and go about that a little bit differently. But let me just replay this video, and maybe you guys can really watch the steps in that he takes in kicking a ball, and how it's could be different than somebody who does not have CP and when they kick a ball.
Wait for the ref, Joe. Good job.
Go!
Okay, so assessing an individual with CP. This is, again, I don't have a student, or have never taught a student with CP in my PE classes, but this is how I would think I would go about doing it, and if it works, that'd be awesome. But again, as teachers, it's a lot of trial and error, and I have not tried this method, but this is something that I would try to do, and by modifying the assessment skill sheet. As you can see, the skill sheet on the right side of the screen is a modified skill sheet for an individual with cerebral palsy. And giving this assessment would obviously be different too. So I probably, in 5th grade, wouldn't have a student do his observation with CP. So I would do the observation myself, or the assessment myself, and through that I could give this student reminders of how he's doing, or what he needs to remember to do, depending on the severity of his cerebral palsy. And then obviously just give positive feedback throughout the entire skill assessment. Whether or not he swings his foot and misses the ball, you're still giving positive feedback always, trying to make him feel good and trying to make him feel important. And then you're going to modify the expectations and goals, and then you're going to differentiate. So when it comes to differentiation, there's a lot of things you can do in this. The equipment, you can use a different type of soccer ball, you can use a beach ball, you can use a volleyball, anything that makes it easier for this student to succeed. Maybe you use different distance from, I guess I would say my kids stand about 10 yards away from the wall, and they kick a ball and retrieve it. Maybe he does 5 yards or 3 yards, something like that. Time, you can give them more time in doing this assessment, give them more space, and then obviously the rules are different when it comes to the skill breakdown of kicking a ball. The kicking a ball skills, as you can see on the sheet right here, are different. So this is something that I just thought I would probably assess a student with CP on instead of the other sheet. It would be the student keeps his eye on the ball while kicking. Is he doing this all the time? Most of the time, usually, some of the time, or never. The student make contact with the ball. I'm, at this point, not necessarily worried about where he's making contact with the ball. You know, if he uses his toe, I'm going to be happy. If he uses his crutch, that's fine, as long as he's making contact with that ball. Because the crutch, I guess, is an extension of, it could be an extension of his leg kind of thing. So if he's making that contact with the crutch, or if he's making a contact with his toe, that's what I'm looking for there, not necessarily what part of the foot he's kicking the ball with, like I would be in a student without CP. we talked about students with CP having balance and posture issues, so I could possibly try to assess that, see if he's making any gains in his balance, in his posture. And then instead of the student being successful in using left and right feet, I would say, is he attempting to? And I would be reminding him, hey, try using your opposite foot here, try using your left foot, use your other foot, something like that. And if he attempts to, then I'm happy. Again, this is a modified kicking a ball skill sheet geared towards those with CP. So a critical thinking activity here. If you guys want to go back to that video that I showed of the student kicking a ball that was super short, they just took that free kick, or there's a video down here that I can play for you, and then go through the skill sheet and assess their kicking skill. So you don't have to write it down or anything, but go through the sheet, and is the student keeping his eye on the ball while kicking? Is the student making contact? Is the student maintaining balance and posture? And is the student attempting to use his left or right foot? Now, again, there wasn't many videos of just individuals with CP kicking a ball in a PE class. So you can go and look at that video that was played a couple slides ago, and or you can click this video, or I'll play this video for you too.
Kian and I have been coming for about 3 weeks now. Kian absolutely loves coming. It's the highlight of his week. He did no sports before this because there isn't many available for children with cerebral palsy. He thoroughly enjoys the skill work and looks forward to coming with the tactical play. I would definitely recommend anybody with cerebral palsy to come here and have a go at the football.
Obviously, me and Jason just come out just to sort of spread the football around in the community. It's great to be able to come out to places and just sort of see everyone who sort of comes and watches the games on Saturdays, and giving everyone an opportunity just to play football. It's great to show that the football club is part of the community, and it's not just a football team that isn't bothered about anyone else. It's a small town, and it's sort of a place where everyone should know everyone, really. It's great to see everyone enjoying football. Everyone should enjoy football. It's a brilliant sport. So it's great to be able to come out and see all the kids out here, playing, who are enjoying playing football.
It's been fantastic. So the kids really enjoy it. They've got a smile on their face. They try all the skills, that sort of thing. And especially when you have people like Natty and Jace coming down to show some sort of interest from the club and from the players, you can just see that they're really enjoying it. There's nothing else in Shrewsbury like this. So these sessions are really paramount to children with cerebral palsy. So long may it continue.
So going along with that critical thinking activity, if there's anything else that you would replace one of my skills with, one of the 4 skills there, that'd be awesome if you could let me know that, or suggestions that could go on, the questions that we're going to ask each other about the presentations, because again, I haven't done this firsthand. I've only just kind of thought about this with this project, how I would assess them, and while making it still pretty generalized, so that they do feel part of a general PE class, because a lot of kids with cerebral palsy are put into generalized PE classes if it's not that severe. Like my buddy in middle school and high school took part in PE with us, and he loved it. And again, as you can see from that video down there, that a lot of these kids don't have the opportunity to play sports, don't have the opportunity to to be physically active, and as we all know, physical activity is vital with everyone, and especially for individuals with disabilities. So, along with this critical thinking activity, please give me some suggestions on this modified skills sheet. If you think it's a good idea, if you think it's a bad idea, if you have another way that you assess kids with disabilities geared towards CP, that'd be awesome to hear. Other than that, my references are right there, and thank you guys so much for listening to my presentation. Thanks.